Today we're diving back into the early 2000s with a spooky series of Gibson guitars that took 4 bass models that we know and love today, but changed them up a whole lot. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. That series being the VooDoo. So obviously these things are very famous for their snakeskin exterior cases. They're just so cool. Nice dark red, black. You get this very evil looking Gibson USA logo. But let's go ahead and see which one we are documenting today. It is the SG. Which when it comes to SGs, usually you've got like a couple of different colors that are traditionally correct, so having one that's a little bit bizarre and out there has always been fun to me. But there were 4 models within the VooDoo series. There's the Les Paul, the SG, the Explorer, and the Flying V. The Explorer and Flying V are the 2 harder ones to find of the series. You can almost always find some sort of a Les Paul or SG out there on the used market. In fact, I would make the argument that the SG is the easiest one to get. But finding one in clean shape, now that's a completely different story. But what makes a VooDoo is the fact that they are made out of a swamp ash body. Usually an SG is made out of mahogany. So that gives us a very unique wood grain here that they fill in with red to give it this evil hue. On top of that, we get the double slug coil ceramic pickups in here that are black and red to add to the vibe. You get the red numbered VooDoo knobs and the red lettered switch tip, along with our red Gibson logo and a sweet ebony fretboard with our Mr. VooDoo skull dude. The finish on these started life as satin, so that means if you find one that's truly new old stock, it'll have that dullness to it and it won't have shined up. But if it's been played at all, you might find one that looks semi-gloss, and it's just because of the natural buffing of the finish as you play it. So that pretty much catches you up on the VooDoo series. I like this one because it reminds me of the Joker's pinstripe jacket or something, because it's very straight wood grain, whereas sometimes you can find more wavy ones. But look at the dog hair-like finish on the back of the neck. They still utilized mahogany on these. So far, I've got 2 of them in my collection. Just need the Les Paul and Flying V now. But these models were birthed in the year 2002, and they lasted until approximately early 2005. So that puts them in Gibson's Edgy era, where they were doing all kinds of fun stuff. Like, if the red's not quite your style, there's also the Gothic series that came slightly before that had Orville Gibson on the back of the headstock. Everything else was just pretty much a flat black finish with a cool inlay on your fretboard that was also ebony. You might also make mention of the 2002 first year faded guitars that had the cool ebony fretboard with crescent moon inlay. Later on in 2006, they came out with the Les Paul Menace. That's got some interesting carvings along the edge. I still need to document one of those. Then there was the American Musical Supply reissue of the VooDoo series. I believe that one started in 2016. Now those ones have a predominantly red finish, but those were done up in Les Paul and SG formats. They didn't reissue the Explorer or the Flying V. And you didn't get all the same unique features as the original run. They went back to dot inlays. So if the skull dude's not your favorite, there is a different version of this guitar. Well, if you want to learn more about the Explorer, I've got a video. You can check it out. But for today, we are going to focus on our new SG friend here. Let's go ahead and throw it on the workbench to take an individual look at its parts and specs. Let's reveal its secrets, starting with the humbuckers. As we already discussed, it's black and red with double slug coils, so that makes these kind of interesting within the Gibson family of things. As far as the backside, they're just pretty basic. You've got the Gibson USA base plates, and this is before they put helpful stickers on it to tell you what it is, so you just have to rely on online spec sheets, as well as readings within the circuit. So 14.84 k ohms in the bridge, 8.44 in the neck, and the middle for fun at 5.37. So that makes it the 496R 500T set. Now let's check out the cavities. So right here we can see the neck tenon as it joins to the body, and the routes are actually incredibly well done for this one. Same thing goes for our bridge pickup, and there's a little leading area that gets to the rest of our electronics. But we can see the continuation of the swamp ash wood grain, and there's a little piece of tape right here. Usually if you ever see that in there, they put that to mask over markings that tell them like what model it is, what color. This one just has like a little circle, but we can see what the ash looks like underneath it, so that's pretty cool. But we'll just put that back in place. Now, if you bought one of these as a project and you wanted to convert it to 61 style, I mean, you technically could mount it using humbucker rings right here. You just have this exposed and right there. I suppose it would be possible. You just have some additional screw holes everywhere. But it kind of works with the spooky vibe these things have. It really just depends on your lighting if you can see the red. Most examples really aren't that strong. Like, this is pretty subtle. You have to get up right on it with this type of lighting to help it come out. It's not quite as in your face as some like sandblasted guitars that other manufacturers have done. The pickguard itself is 1 ply, just single black. But now as far as our bridge and tailpiece being a 68 style, to remove your pickguard you have to take the thumb posts out. So here's what one of those looks like, standard stuff. And here's an up close look at our black hardware. Nice and shiny, not flat. However, I do not see any of the regular markings on the back of this one. And here's the tailpiece, very similar with the casting mark that they were using in this era. As far as our controls, you can see our red numbers and the red lettering we were talking about. Got your output jack on the front, black strap buttons. Now this example is far from perfect. Like we've got a couple of impressions right there. There's a small area where the finish was rubbed through here. Down here by the tailpiece we have some more impressions, but I got an okay enough of a price on this one that I'm not going to worry too much about that. If one day a truly minty one does show up, maybe I'll swap it out, but honestly, this thing is pretty good for one of these. Because the thin satin finish, it's prone to getting buffed up. I mean, this one has a little bit of it, but nothing too extreme. It maintains the look how it was initially from the factory. That's what I'm going for my museum collection. I always like the end grain on these things. I mean, look how cool that is, especially with the red in it. But I was looking down here to see how many pieces the body was, and I only see one obvious join line, and it's right there. It runs right along here. However, looking closely, it looks like there might be another small one segmented on right there too. But that might not be one, because I don't see that on the top. So potentially a 3-piece body, but all on one side. Moving on from that, we've got the mahogany neck with the ebony fretboard. Now these aren't one of those crazy SGs with 24 frets, it's just 22, so not a full 2-octave scale. But if you like the whole unbound, unmarkered fretboard look, you're gonna like this because you only have to deal with this thing at the 5th fret. It's kind of doofy, but it matches the vibe of the guitar, and I feel it gave the series an identity. But it is important to note that we still have the white side marker inlays. They didn't go crazy making those red. But we have a basic 12-inch fretboard radius with a 24 3/4-inch scale length. We have a 1.68-inch nut width, which by the way is black, and that increases to 2.06 by the 12th. First fret neck depth, 0.84, and by the 12th, surprisingly chunky, 1.01. Here's that neck profile at the 1st fret and the 12th fret. It doesn't look as big as it feels. It might not be an R8 baseball bat, but it's nice and rounded. If you've been looking for kind of a fatter necked SG, one of these will definitely make you happy. Moving on to our headstock. Unfortunately, we do have some sort of a scuff right here, and another area right here at the tip of the headstock. But everything else on it cleaned off alright, so we can see our red Gibson decal, black Grover tuners, and there's our truss rod in perfect shape, as well as our blank 1-ply black cover. Moving on to the backside, look at this beautiful cavity. It's just so awesomely routed, it's not all splintery, all the wiring is done top notch, you can easily see the Gibson branding on all the pots. It's all original, this is an untouched example. There is kind of a light anomaly within the plastic and the backplate though. That's why I was curious if somebody had ever modified anything on this one. But it's looking good. The back isn't all chewed up either. Now if you get it in the light just right, you can see what look like scratches, but it's actually just something has slightly buffed the finish as it was rubbing against it. So it looks like a scratch, acts like a scratch, but isn't. But right here you can see like a built up area in the factory finish. I saw some of that on my Explorer too. Over here there was a small chip/indent in the wood, so it caught the red fill a little bit deeper than the other areas. And this part of the guitar has definitely been lightly buffed as it rubbed against the player. But from a couple of feet back, it looks almost perfect. Nice straight wood grain. The mahogany neck is definitely glossed over, but that's alright. That just means I don't have to be too scared of playing this one actually. But the hog grain doesn't quite capture the red as much. You really gotta be looking for it. Perhaps they should have went a little bit heavier. Once you get up here to your serial number, you start to see it. So it looks like this one was made the day after Valentine's Day in 2003. Initial batch production number 421. Made in USA. Now the black Rover tuner has a little bit of the coating missing right there, but all the other ones look pretty nice. All said and done, 6 pounds, 3.5 ounces. Not too bad. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how it sounds. I play a Voodoo series guitar, I always think of Godsmack. I know they've got the song Voodoo, but all their discography sounds fantastic on one of these. So the kind of fuller feeling neck on this feels really good. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, it is a little bit neck heavy, but it's not so neck heavy that you're constantly fighting it. This is one that you could put like maybe a half-pound weight down here, and you wouldn't really even notice it, and then it would balance just fine. I'm having a lot of fun with this, even more so than my Explorer, because these are a lot easier to replace should you damage and or break it. Although it's definitely begging for some heavier gauge strings to do the lower tunings a bit better. Go ahead and get some clean tones now. So they're definitely hot ceramic pickups. They want to overdrive your amp. But it's a good breakup. Now that we know all about the SG VooDoo, what are my final thoughts on this thing? Get one if you can. These things are a steal. Maybe this is just a particularly good one. I have a kind of love-hate relationship with the 496R 500T series pickups. Some guitars, they sound fantastic, like the Bucketheads. Other guitars, I think they're just way too aggressive, like in the Zoot Suit series. And maybe it just all comes down to what I'm in the mood for. But I really enjoyed this guitar. It's got the perfect neck profile for me. It's not so neck heavy that I hate it, but it's still a little bit there because, you know, it's an SG. It's got really cool, unique vibes to it. Now, whether you believe in voodoo and all that stuff, I'll leave that to you personally. I just like the way these things look. And this thing being the light satin finish, you just hammer away at it. Sure, it's got a couple of light dings and impressions, but I'm just looking for a nice voodoo set that's not all chewed up on the back, I guess. So I'm happy this one fell into my lap. A little bit of extra story here for you. A viewer of the show actually sent me an email about this one, and we went back and forth a little bit, and the rest is history. It's documented. All right, troglodytes, I hope you enjoy your new knowledge of the SG VooDoo. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day, and you might even enjoy this next one.